This podcast is brought to you by AZ Technology Solutions. AZ Technology is the web design company that Alex and I run. We both work full-time jobs, however, so we aren't taking any new business at the moment. However, you can visit aztechsoul.com/N8n for more information about us and the show. You can also view all the show notes and listen to all the episodes in one place. You could also find us on Spotify or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just a quick disclosure. While we feature N8n in our podcast name, we are in no way affiliated with N8n. We are part-time automation enthusiasts who enjoy building automations on the N8n platform. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Angel and Alex, and do not necessarily reflect the views of N8n.io, its affiliates, or its employees. This podcast is brought to you by AZ Technology Solutions. AZ Technology is the web design company that Alex and I run. We both work full-time jobs, however, so we aren't taking any new business at the moment. However, you can visit aztechsoul.com/N8n for more information about us and the show. You can also view all the show notes and listen to all the episodes in one place. You could also find us on Spotify or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just a quick disclosure. While we feature N8n in our podcast name, we are in no way affiliated with N8n. We are part-time automation enthusiasts who enjoy building automations on the N8n platform. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Angel and Alex, and do not necessarily reflect the views of N8n.io, its affiliates, or its employees. Welcome to the unofficial N8n podcast. I'm Angel, and I've got Alex on the line.
Hey there.
We both work for cybersecurity companies, and we are pretty big, I would say, enthusiasts of automation, and specifically of the N8n platform. So we wanted to start a little podcast to kind of talk through, especially since they release a lot of new versions of the platform, talk through kind of the changes of the versions and our thoughts on those changes.
Yeah, when we first, stumbled upon N8n in our work, just automating processes that we found could be automated. So, really we kind of organically stumbled upon it and, learned with it and help share some of our experiences and kind of help you avoid some of the pain points that we stumbled upon.
Yeah. But some of the cool things too. I mean, I've been using a lot of the fun projects that I've been doing have been for my wife through some of her children's book, and some of her little pet projects are through her rental properties as well. There's a lot of boring paperwork that you have to do in rental property management. So I've been using N8n a lot for experimenting with her, and anytime she comes to me and complains about something, I'm just like, well, can we automate it? And so I've been finding a lot of value in the platform there. And then those little tests I can take to work with me. One of the things that I've really liked about the platform is being able to copy and paste the snippets of code from one platform to another just by sending the JSON essentially from one to another. That's made things so easy. And actually, Alex, have you been to the forum recently?
No, I actually haven't.
They put a little tweet essentially where you can see the workflows in the forum itself without having to put them in N8n, actually.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm actually showing you right now. The only downside is it does take a few moments to load, but once it does, it's really cool because you can look in the forum, the community forum, without, and look at the code or the automation workflow without having to have the actual N8n platform open. So, and
That's awesome.
this is automatic. This is just from copying. You have to make sure to use when posting. You have to hit the little, what would you call this icon here?
Code block.
The code block icon, preformatted text button. But once you do that and you paste your N8n code in there, it automatically formats it for you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's fully interactive and everything, so that's actually really nice.
Yeah. You can double click on the nodes, and it pops up with the values, just like as if, just in the normal UI. So
That's
very
awesome.
cool stuff. Yeah, that's one of the other things I like about N8n as well is they have a really cool community. I only made it to the kind of the tail end of the community meetup the other day, just because I was in the middle of work, so I couldn't make it to the whole thing. But it was really cool because there's like I want to say about 40 people that showed up, and I want to say that in the forum, I want to say that that's about how many active users there are on top of the new people that just show up asking questions. But it's kind of a small, tight knit community, and I think everyone's really excited about the fact that it's free. Right? You were mentioning that earlier, Alex. That makes
Yeah.
such a huge difference with
Oh, yeah.
with like Zapier or if this then that. Their pricing models, they can get a little out of control.
Yeah, it's a lot more accessible than something like that.
Yeah, especially if you like many times I feel like when it comes to automation there's a lot of trial and error. So you spend a lot of time like saying would this work? Is this worth the effort? And sometimes if you're paying on a per automation basis, it's not worth the effort, right? If you're like, oh, well, this will solve the problem, but increase my bill by X amount, you kind of just put things to the side. But whenever it's free for the most part, if it's running on your local machine or in a local Docker instance, I feel like it becomes a lot more valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's more of a sandbox rather than trying to kind of hold off on your executions until you know it's working.
Yeah. Yeah. I you know what? I even see it a little bit like a video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all the bells and whistles, seeing the data flow in and out, and having that end goal, right? And being limited in a way. You have rules that you have to follow when you're using N8n. It's not
Mhm.
completely, wild. You have to know JSON, so you have to know a little bit. Say you have to at least understand how data works, right? At a minimum to
Yeah.
use it.
Then you get that sweet, sweet sense of relief once it actually runs successfully.
Yeah. Yeah, and you feel like, oh man, like I've been beating my head against this task or process for the last X amount of time, and then seeing it just take off, and then all your job becomes is maintaining the platform, right? Maintaining your desktop version, your Docker version, and making sure that it's working correctly. But to me, I find that a lot easier and less stressful than actually having to remember to do certain things at certain times, every day.
Yeah,
So one of-
100%.
so one of the things we wanted to talk about, and one of the reasons that we started putting this podcast together, is because one of the latest versions that came out, I think it was 0.168, 1 and 2. I think there were two revisions that were released, but that version introduced a new feature, which was user access management, essentially allowing you to have one N8n instance and being able to log into it with multiple users. And so Alex and I got a chance the other day to sit down and deploy it in our own little sandbox instance that we run. And, what were your thoughts on this, Alex? So we basically had to spin up an SMTP server to
Hmm.
essentially set up the email. But overall, what were your thoughts on that process that we went through?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty easy. You did most of the work, so I was just following along for that one. But yeah, I mean, the fact that we kind of had an SMTP service already ready to go made it a lot easier. So,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, it's just a environment variable that we had
Mm-hmm.
to update or sorry add because
Yep.
our instance that we toy around with is hosted in Docker. So
Mm-hmm.
we use a Docker compose file that basically kind of creates that configuration for us. So whenever something needs to change, we're able to just edit that one file and then just do a quick restart of the N8n instance, and those changes are there. So, but yeah, I mean, I think overall it was pretty easy. I know we had the one hiccup, which I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to go into, Angel, but it was the sending account email to the same domain
Yeah.
that the SMTP servers
Yeah.
is using caused some issues there where basically email didn't get delivered. So
Mhm.
just one little hiccup to look out for is the if you're setting it up that way, make sure to if you have like a work email or something, send that user
Yeah, and
registration.
it was kind of my fault in a way because I was being cheap and I didn't want to route it. So we use Google Apps for our sandbox domain that we play with, and that is set up as a primary email. But for a lot of our web hosting, we have our own little Apache server that is running cPanel that allows us to spin up, in our case, test WordPress servers that we can start playing around with, sandbox and build and do whatever. Now, the problem is, or not problem, the benefit is that with this cPanel deployment, it comes with a built-in SMTP server. So instead of having to spin up or set up a service through another third party, using that same sandbox server, we were able to spin up our SMTP server and deploy it. But because the routing for the outgoing mail was working, but for the incoming mail, it wasn't really working correctly because it was going to Google. It caused some issues and some undeliverable emails, essentially. The way around it that we were able to fix it is to use personal email, and that worked fine. And I mean, I'm sure if we hadn't gone cheap and routed it directly through Gmail, I didn't test that. I know how much trouble Google causes. Actually, I don't even think they allow SMTP anymore, if I'm not mistaken. It's used to be allowed using the less secure apps, but now with OAuth 2 and all of these new security frameworks and protocols, it seems to have kind of gone by the wayside. So I didn't even want to go through the hassle of figuring out if Google would work with that server. And I guess that's my one complaint with this whole thing, is that I wish that user access management didn't require SMTP to deploy. I wish it was all token based and the SMTP server was an optional add-on, because I feel like that would make it a lot easier to deploy. You can deploy it, and then later on down the road, when you're ready to make things a little bit easier, then deploy the SMTP server. But I'll take it.
Did we try updating without adding the SMTP information in there?
Yes. Okay.
Did it? I was gonna say, because I'm pretty sure that
was
caused an error, right?
No, that was really impressive on the side of N8n. So N8n recognized that I didn't have those environment variables, and they said, hey, would you like to defer the creation of a master account to later and just keep using N8n the same way you've always used it, right? Where you use basic auth to log in. And so I did, and it worked. I've been using it up until, what was it, 2 or 3 days ago that we ran that update and then deployed the SMTP server. So it was a really good experience, and that I was able to tell N8n later. I can't do this right now. I've got other things on my mind. We'll do this later. And when we finally were able to deploy it, it's been working great for me. I mean, how often do we get mail, right? Do we have to reset the account, right? That's really the main thing and that's what gets me. It's like all that work just so that we can activate the user, reset the password, and that's it. It's just so much work. So, but thankfully, I think that the route they took was good. They made it so you could opt out, and then I just went back in the settings and reactivated it, and it started working. So I'm really impressed. I'm really, really impressed with how they did that.
Yeah, and all our issues too. I'm sure had we spent a little more time, we would have been able to figure them out too. Because it's like 11:30 at night. We'll see what happens. So
typical work sessions at night.
Yeah. Man. So yeah, I'm sure we could have figured it out. With some more troubleshooting and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I mean, but overall, one thing would have been nice too is like a what did we say? Like a test SMTP connection button. Mm-hmm. It did some kind of test, but it would tell you. It would tell you after the fact, right? Like when you'd hit send or whatever, it would say email was sent or was not sent successfully. That worked. But just a general test connection button to make sure that connection is taking place would have been real nice, just for my sanity, because the connection was working fine. The problem was actually sending the email to my Google account, because that one had already managed the DNS managed for it separately. So that created all kinds of issues. But yeah, in the future, I think it would have worked a little bit better if, like you said, we'd been a little bit more prepared and it wasn't late at night for sure. Oh, man. Another thing we noticed while looking through the latest version, so I think the latest is now 0.172, is it looks like they're working on the new UI. So it looks like the UI is changing. I think you'd mentioned something a little earlier about maybe color blindness maybe affecting it. I think that That makes
Yeah.
sense,
So
right?
yeah. So when you're looking at like the data in the different nodes,
Hmm.
and you have the JSON view active, it used to be I think it was green and red.
Hmm.
Uh, and Angel, you're actually the one that showed me, but it's all
Yeah.
purple now. So I think color blindness, like green and red, are the big ones. So so I think
Yeah.
the change to purple. I mean, we don't have.
Be nice if we could
It's all
control that.
it's all speculation. That's
Yeah.
why they did it, but yeah, it looks a lot cleaner now.
Yeah, that's it does, I'll tell you what, it does look a lot more professional. I then
Yeah, the bright lime green.
it did, I'm telling you, it felt like a video game. It felt like a fun little toy, that you put things together in and you kind of learn. But yeah, I mean, but I do like it. I can't complain. I think it does look a little bit more grown up, a little bit more professional, and even
Yep.
their back, what was it, their documentation pages I've noticed are starting to change. We were looking at that just a few minutes ago, and we noticed that. So I
It
think
almost
they're doing a little rebranding.
yeah, it almost seems like started off as like a fun passion project and slowly, not in a bad way, but becoming more corporate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to grow up sometime, but I
Yep.
mean, as long as the functionality remains, right, that and
Oh
it
yeah.
stays free, you can bet I'm going to keep supporting it. I being able to for me being able to say, hey, if you take the time and energy to learn this platform, it could be free. If you don't want to learn it, that's okay. There are, you could pay N8n to host it for you and to manage it for you. If you just want to learn, the basic automation portion, not a problem. But if you wanted to, really sit down and learn how to deploy your own Docker instance, put it on your own URL, things like that, you can get so much power out of the platform. I think there's very little that you can't do with it. Like there's so much you can do with it. Anyway, well, I think that's it for today. We don't want to take up a lot of your time, and we just want to kind of stay on top of the newest releases as best we can. Maybe I'm thinking once a month. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, we'll do our
We'll stay
best.
fluid.
Yeah, we have both have families. We both have little ones running around. So free time is not something we have a huge amount of, but we do every time a new version is released. Our goal is definitely to try to get a new podcast out. We just want to talk through these releases and give our thoughts and impressions on them, and we'd love to hear from you as well. So if you'd like to drop us a line, we'll make sure to include in the show notes a link for you to send us messages, and we look forward to answering any ones that you might have. That we'll be signing off.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great one.